Golden Oyster Cult. Seeing Rashida Tlaib's speech, I'm even more angry and disgusted by David Pakman, who in a recent podcast said that it was giving the benefit of the doubt to Rashida Tlaib was stupid rather than genocidal in her defense of the phrase from the river to the sea.
I hope that's a mischaracterization, because that's outrageous.
I'm sorry that I ever gave Pakman my money in the past subscription. I mean, I hope that's a mischaracterization, but Golden Oyster Cult, you're a frequent IMer, so I trust your characterization. If that is the case, I vehemently disagree with that. It is a chant that is, if you ever have been to a pro-Palestine demonstration like myself, that is frequently chanted. It is a call for liberation that, yes, was adopted by Hamas, but the context of regular people chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is not the one that is applied to Hamas. And we've gone over this time and time again.
Pakman should have... Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this is like the one issue that has like decades long standing in, you know, the activity and activism around this. Like, I remember being in junior high, really getting into like politics in general and leftist politics. And like, I recall this chant at pro-Palestine rallies and marches and events. Yep. Like, this has been around for decades. And this is the first time I've ever heard any major pushback like this before. I've heard previously people say they have a problem with that chant, but I've never in my lifetime of the decades seeing pro-Palestine rallies and events, I have never seen this blowback to the chant, let alone the outright labeling it of hate speech and anti-Semitism.
But we know why.
It's just they're losing the propaganda.
We know why. It's because the conflation between Israel and Jewish people is breaking in front of people's eyes, because actually a lot of the people opposing Israel are Jews in America.
Yep.
And I mean, and like the idea that this is anti-Semitism, like I've been led by Jewish writers and thinkers to this, like Tony Judt in the New York Review of Books in 2003, saying like, yeah, actually they're going the way of ethno-nationalism that is anachronistic.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, like I again, like I'm not going to take that characterization of what Pakman said at face value. I'll hold out hope that wasn't real, but I do think Pakman's been avoidant on this issue, and he should have a post-Zionist, somebody like, I don't know, Colwyn, or even somebody like Ilan Pappy or Avi Shlaim to actually like show his audience the lay of the land in this, because they're just being left behind. Because what I've seen is, and this was when he had that co-host, I can't remember what his name is, but they're talking about the word apartheid and saying, yeah, nobody using that phrase know what words means.
Yeah.
And I just think like you're straw manning this as if it's just like for some reason there's a whole bunch of anti-Semitic college freshmen that just hate Jews for some reason and are projecting it onto Israel. That's not the case.
It's not. And I think, you know, what's also notable is that, you know, who thinks that from the river to the sea, they should have all the territory is the Israeli government. Netanyahu went and spoke at the United Nations with a map of Israel-Palestine. Let's look up that map, actually, if you don't mind. This was before the October 7th attacks. This was the map that Netanyahu displayed at the UN, and it was immensely inflammatory because it essentially erased Palestinian sovereignty. When I mean,
that's what they've always. That's what Israel has never acknowledged that. Like,
yes,
it's always been this like, oh, we can't do it because it's terror. But it's just.
Yes, this is it. If you look at go to the second one, Common Dreams. He showed this map of, here we go, map of the Middle East without Palestine to the UN General Assembly. What day was this? When was this? So you'll see, if we could just zoom in. This was on September 22nd, okay? You know, we talk about things that are like the conditions that led us to the October 7th attack. It's the Abraham Accords, the choking off of like traditional Arab allies, no matter how threadbare they were for Palestinians in the region, that also contributed to the desperation, and things like this.
No, you hear words like eradication get thrown out by Zionists. They want to eradicate Palestine.
Yes,
and I'd like it if there was a open form of Zionism that wasn't about that. It doesn't exist on this planet.
It doesn't anymore. And I think that people are beginning to understand that. So you can see here that the map he displayed doesn't even acknowledge the existence of Palestine. I would imagine that if, people saw that, might be a little bit radicalized. I don't know.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole focus on language, too, is, well, for one, it takes away from what's actually going on right now. But also, if we're going to focus on language, why is it never to go both ways? Like, there's literally a U.S. State Department spokesperson. I mean, this happens every time. Whenever anything's asked about what's going on with the massive amounts of civilian casualties in Gaza, the first thing they do is they repeat the same slogan, the same phrase: Israel has a right to defend itself. At what point do we consider that slogan to be Islamophobic, anti-Arab, xenophobic, racist, pro the murder of innocents? We're hearing that slogan every time someone brings up, what about all these massive civilian deaths, these thousands of children, Palestinian children who've died in Gaza, and they just repeat this slogan. So if we want to talk about language, should we consider that as well to be off guards? Can't say that anymore. If anyone says that, that means they're racist and Islamophobic.
Yeah.
I mean, here's Bibi Netanyahu. I can't remember exactly. Maybe this is from 2022, but it's translated Hebrew by Google. These are the basic lines of the national government headed by me. The Jewish people have an exclusive and unquestionable right to all areas of the land of Israel. The government will promote and develop settlement in all the parts of the land of Israel, including the Galilee, the Negev, the Golan, Judea, and Samaria. It's clear. There is no dispute about what this is. The eradication is coming from inside Israel. Like that, this is not a. And when Palestinians say from the river to the sea, and not just Palestinians, but say like the leading Israeli historians, Avi Shlaim and Ilan Pappy, when they say from the river to the sea, they're not genocidal remotely, and it's disgusting that so many people have been saying that. What they're saying is that democracy is the way forward. And look, okay, if you want to do the two-state solution, that is, as Avi Shlaim says, that is liberal ethno-nationalism. That is preferable to this fascist, exterminationist, right-wing nationalism that we are just allowing to take place in front of our face. But let me tell you this. The obstacle to a two-state solution is the same one as the obstacle to a one-state solution, which is Zionists want every single inch of that land, and they want the Palestinians off it.
Let's pull this clip up, or this tweet up that I sent. This is from a pro-Israel activist, right? This is they're admitting right here exactly what we're seeing. This is a photo of Israeli soldiers in Gaza. It says it right here. Photo: Israel is back in Gaza, and we are here to stay in our ancestral land and our ancient beaches. So this is just an example of like
eradication of Palestine.
Yes. Zionism is a religious, nationalist, and then by extension, expansionist ideology. And we on the left are against religious and ethnic nationalism. It's not that difficult to comprehend. Now, I mean, and not just because like, oh, in principle, we just don't like this construction of a state. I mean,
look at the results.
But the results are clear, to Matt's point. It makes everybody less safe. Because when you're constantly worried about either expanding your territory or protecting the ethnic purity of your state, it's by definition exclusionary. And it results in things like the apartheid that we see. The fact that in Gaza, there and in different parts of the occupied territories in the West Bank, there are roads that Palestinians cannot drive on. The fact that 80% of people in Gaza are reliant on food aid. The fact that 90% of people in Gaza do not have clean water. I mean, the fact that life expectancy is much lower than it is in other areas because people die so young. It's the result of the fact that Palestinians don't have political rights. They don't have the ability to have a voice in their government in the only quote-unquote democracy in the Middle East. They are occupied. They are subjugated.
You have Jim Crow in the West Bank.
They're second-class citizens. That's why you see people of color in this country have solidarity, and why the only frickin' people who are calling for a ceasefire in the House right now are POC, is because they see this. They understand this. This is a part of the cultural history in the United States. So, like, I'm against Christian nationalism. I am against Zionism. I'm against Muslim fundamentalism. I'm against Hindu nationalism, as we've covered on this program. The left is against essentially this nationalist ideology. And the reality is that the reason that there's this fervor and that we're starting to undo so much of the brainwashing that's happened here in the West is because this ideology that is unfortunately so destructive, it was right in keeping with United States and Western imperial interests, and that's why it's so interlinked and difficult to rip apart at this point. It is not hatred of Jews. The reason that the reason that basically you're seeing such pushback here is because it threatens Western hegemony in that way.
Yeah, and an exclusive. Let's see if I can find that Tony Jett thing. I'm not sure if I can, but yeah, maybe we can just move on. I'll bring it up a little bit later.
I don't even know what I am we read that got us down that road, but I'll take it.
It was. I mean, no, but to your point, like it is wild to me how obvious, the even just like looking at the Israeli government, it's like, how can any liberal see this and not understand this is exactly what they hate about Russia and Putin, about Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Like, this is, in my opinion, Netanyahu and his government's worse. I mean, frankly, they just are. Yeah. I mean, just look at the casualties. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's so I just don't understand what's not connecting here. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like we can obviously talk about whatever the peace process looks like or whatever, sure, but the fact that we can't even get past this point of this government's got to go and what they're doing is wrong is just
and supporters
mind-blowing to me.
And liberal Zionists in the same freaking breath will say Netanyahu's a tyrant, Netanyahu's horrible, Netanyahu's crazy, we want him out, and then be like, whoa, but obviously Netanyahu, the way that he's defending Israel is completely rational and justified.
He's a logical continuation of Israel. There's no
but which one is it though? I mean, people really need to start to think more critically about this stuff. I mean, is Israel earnestly defending itself with Netanyahu at the helm if you think he's insane? How can you square those two thoughts?
Because it's what you said, what we've been talking about this entire day is extreme racism. Have that Pappy clip up, because this is why every time Avi Shlaim and Ilan Pappy say hey, I think actually we don't need to have segregation to get Muslims and Jews to live together. And in fact, actually this exclusive nationalist project that the Zionists have been doing with the help of Western powers is one of the causes of all of the strife. Actually, maybe the leading one. Avi Shlaim himself said that his family was very happy to live in Baghdad, and then they had to move because of Zionism and the us versus them idea that of course entrenched because it's right there in the policy. But this every time they have to say this stuff about racism, because that is the fundamental objection here. It's we cannot. What is happening now is justifiable because otherwise the Arabs would massacre Jews, and that is Israel. The government of Israel knows that is their the best thing in their bag, and they go to it all the time. And so we need to be actually forthright about what this actually means. So go ahead, Bradley.
Surprised when I'm sort of listening to John Kerry, re-listening to John Kerry's last speech. If you remember, he was in a very dramatic voice. He explained to us that without a two-state solution, the only possible scenario is an apartheid Israel. And I wanted to say, hello, John. How are you? Looking up. The one-state apartheid is already there, so your warning is not about the future, you're actually describing the present. Secondly, couldn't you find one moment in your speech, maybe 2 sentences in your speech to say that actually having a democratic state for Jews and Palestinians between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean is not a doomsday scenario? Couldn't you just say, wouldn't it be wonderful to have settlers and natives living as equal citizens in the same state? Why do you have to describe this as a doomsday scenario. The only people in the world who would describe this as a doomsday scenario are Zionists. Because they think that when the Jews are not a majority, the only possible thing Palestinians can do is to kill them. Well, I lived in Haifa all my life. I live in the Galilee. I was in political outfits and academic outfits where the Jews were the minority and nothing bad happened to us. And the idea that Palestine cannot be a political outfit if the Palestinians are the majority and the Jews are a minority is a racist idea that should be challenged strongly.
Wow, when was that?
I can look that up, actually.
Like at least 10 years ago, gotta be, right?
It's absolutely true, though. Like, you could just look
Simple.
at, like, literally whenever you see this. Okay, if you're listening to the show, do this exercise. When you're online and you see someone, not just like just a common pro-Israel supporter. I'm talking about those people. You see someone like rabidly supporting the Israeli government. Click their profile. Scroll down. Do a search in their history. Look certain keywords up. Look how they've referred to Arab people, Muslim people. Look if they even say the word Palestine or Palestinian.
Can they say Palestinian?
Yep. Because that's another thing. So many of these people who have a problem with the phrase from the river to the sea, they also have a previous history of saying, oh, there's no such thing as a Palestinian. You have to call them Gazans. Palestine doesn't exist.
Yep.
They're literally telling you that they don't view these people as Palestinians because they're saying Palestine does not exist. Palestinians don't exist.
One might use a word
then they
like
have a problem with the phrase.
eradication. Eradication. They're eradicating Palestine. These words, yeah.
And it's not just that. It's not just that. There was a story going around, and we've seen this throughout. Like, this is why this is always been an issue that touches me so strongly. There is no other issue I know of on the planet where an entire people, like at least in modern times, I don't want to in modern times, in the past couple of decades, where you mention something or they just they just show that they're visible. And there's a problem with that. And a great example was there was an article going around about how last year a hospital in London displayed some artwork by children in Gaza. Just
Yes.
and it wasn't anything political either. It was just the olive branches that symbolize Palestine and them wearing like the keffiyeh. Excuse me if I'm saying it wrong. The scarf, right. And things like that, just showing Palestinian culture. And the hospital took it down because there was a complaint from a UK lobby group who said that artwork was making Jewish patients feel uncomfortable. Just the visibility of Palestinian children saying, this is our culture, yep. Here we are, nothing political. And they took it down. The hospital didn't even stand up and say there's nothing wrong with this artwork. Didn't even, as far as I saw, no Jewish people even complained because these articles were just strictly saying sourced from this UK political lawyer lobby group were saying this. It was just baffling to me.
The truth
blatant racism.
In the context of Zionism, the existence of Palestinians is itself political. Yeah. Because this is like immediately you read any of these books, Ilham Pappy, whoever. A close eye on the demographics and who you need to expel and how many you need to expel and who you can allow to, because like let's say America's going to get upset if we start shelling Nazareth, for instance, like that. Like these sorts of considerations were fundamental to the foundation of this country. Yeah. I found this. That was from 6 years ago, the Pappy clip. I found this from Tony Judt, who is a deceased now, but Jewish writer who was smeared by Israel, by Zionists as anti-Semitic for saying like this and things like this in 2003. In a world where nations and peoples increasingly intermingle and intermarry at will, where cultural and natural impediments to communication have all but collapsed, where more and more of us have multiple elective identities and would feel falsely constrained if we had to answer to just one of them, in such a world, Israel is truly an anachronism. And not just an anachronism, but a dysfunctional one. In today's clash of cultures between open, pluralistic democracies and belligerently intolerant, faith-driven ethno-states, Israel actually exists falling into the wrong camp. Continues. To convert Israel from a Jewish state to a binational one would not be easy, though not quite as impossible as it sounds. You'll hear some Twitch streamers and stuff like that talk shit about how this stuff is impossible. So in 2003, Judd is addressing those morons. To convert Israel from a Jewish state to a binational one would not be easy, though not quite as impossible as it sounds. The process has already begun de facto, but it would cause far less disruption to most Jews and Arabs than its religious and nationalist foes will claim. In any case, no one I know has a better idea. Anyone who genuinely supposes that the controversial electronic fence now being built will resolve matters has missed the last 50 years of history. The fence, actually an armored zone of ditches, fences, sensors, dirt roads for tracking footprints, and a wall up to 28 feet tall in places, occupies, divides, and steals Arab farmland. It will destroy villages, livelihoods, and whatever remains of the Arab Jewish community. It costs approximately $1 million per mile and will bring nothing but humiliation and discomfort to both sides. Like the Berlin Wall, it confirms the moral and institutional bankruptcy of the regime it is intended to protect.
I mean, what else can you say?
We can pick apart slogans instead of addressing that.
I just want, like, if you're called an anti-Semite, you can, I mean, look people straight in the eye, and you can say that you're the bigot.
Yep.
You're the bigot. Zionism is a bigoted ideology. Full stop. As is all religious and ethno-nationalism. All of it. And just because there's been a multi-decade long propaganda campaign that has convinced people in this country that opposing it is akin to anti-Semitism, it doesn't mean that you should cower to that. We should all feel emboldened by this moment.
Yep.
And I certainly do.
I absolutely do. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that there's been a few moments like this. I mean, the early one, I remember before I was even working at Majority Report when Bibi Netanyahu did the whole come to address Congress over Obama's head thing. I think that was a pretty clarifying moment. But it's impossible to learn about the world and also feel okay with the way Israel has developed. Unless you ignore the actual reality of it.
Yep.
And you can call it it's a democracy with LGBT people, just with a little aside of Jim Crow and a side of Guernica every 5 years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully the bombs are rainbow colored when they drop them on Palestinian children. Freaks.
Also, It's not even entirely true that there's some
well, it's just a way. It's a way to
liberal,
say they're savages. Yeah. It's a way to say they're not Western. They're savages. They're
no, but I'm talking about. But I'm talking about even Israel is not like. If you're a woman who wants to get a divorce in Israel, you need to get permission from your husband to get that divorce. You can't get a divorce on your own. Is that the liberal feminist empowerment democracy that we aspire to be, or we aspire to have around the world? Like, we have no problem calling out countries that are theocratic in the Muslim world. We have no problem doing that. We have no problem demonizing those countries, and even doing it to the point where we're so bloodthirsty we sound like we hate them based on even how they look and how they talk and the color of their skin more so than anything else. And that's what we're seeing right now. Of course, I've actually already experienced it myself, because people are under the notion, I guess, because how I look, that I'm Arab or Muslim, and people have already called me insanely racist things for something that I'm not even, but I don't call them out, because the point isn't what I am. The point is, you shouldn't be saying that about those people. And I have no problem just shutting my mouth and letting them think I'm that and standing with those people. But the idea that Israel, because it's not Muslim, is allowed to basically run a theocratic state is absurd. We have no problem calling the far right in this country, the evangelical Christian right on this country, who want to do away with abortion rights. We have no problem calling them the Christian Taliban and all these other things. Again, even that phrase is to demonize what we see over in the in the Middle East. Right? The Christian Taliban, right? We have no problem, though, demonizing any sort of religious zealots in Christianity, any religious zealots in the Muslim world, but we can't apparently do that with zealots in Israel. It's just consider these things, people. Seriously, just think about what is the difference. There is none.